everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with Kajal and she's going to share her experience in the tech space. Thank you, Kajal, for joining me on this Zoom call. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Kajal and I'm a robotics software engineer. I'm also a YouTuber where I share my insights on what life in tech is like. As a robotics software engineer, it's been fun. You know what they say, that working with robots is cool? It's totally true. It's cool and it's fun. And I think the most I learned was on the job fighting fires. And it's when you have to make things happen, you get the most work done.
So true. So how did you get into robotics and engineering? Like what led you to pursue it?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So, back in my undergraduation, I did electronics and telecommunication. Back then, I would say I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And it was through one of the internships that I found out more about robotics and how amazing it was. And as I learned how to code, I truly enjoyed it because you can create anything you want. And it's logical, there's a bit of mathematics, and it's truly, it's one of those fields where you can write a code and you will see it in the real world being implemented. And that's what got me involved in robotics. And because I didn't know much about it back then, I chose to go for a master's in robotics at University of Maryland. I moved from India to the US. And through my master's, I learned a lot about robotics. My master's was unique in the way it started with a bunch of basics. So we had basics in modeling, controls, path planning, computer vision, and that kind of got me started into, okay, what are these different subfields and what it means. Through that, I found that my interest lies in the field of perception and computer vision, and then I continued down that line. After graduating, I did one job which I didn't really like, so I switched to another job, and that's where I truly enjoyed things. So my best experience was at BrainCorp. It's a robotics startup in San Diego, and at that company, I really grew. As I started fighting different fires, I learned different techniques. And what was great was I was surrounded by such amazing, talented people who were always ready to help me. So, if you're ever stuck in life, reach out to people. People are more than willing to help you. Just ask.
Advice. I think that's something that all of us can do more of, just like asking people for advice, just not being scared to ask for help. Definitely. And also what you said about like coding and how like cool coding is. You can do anything with coding. I definitely feel that that's also like kind of what led me to pursue computer science and this whole tech field as well. Just the fact that you can like build anything. So I definitely agree with that. What type of day-to-day work are you doing as an engineer, like in robotics?
Yeah, sure. So, a lot of people think that once you get started in a company, most of the time you will just be coding. However, it was after I went into the industry, I realized that coding is only 20 to 30% of your time. Most of your time is spent firstly figuring out the problems. When things go wrong, the biggest thing is, okay, why is this happening? And then once you figure that out, it's about, okay, how do we solve this? And again, both of these things you don't always have to do alone. There was, you know, call a meeting, do some brainstorming, and be like, hey, this is the problem. How do we solve it? And you get to have experience from different people. So someone who's been there in the company for 5 years would know more, and they'd be like, hey, check this out, hey, check that out. Versus if it's someone new, they would have a completely different perspective because they don't have preconceived concepts being like, okay, this is the only thing that could go wrong. And then after that, you start to solve the problem in new code. And then after coding comes probably the thing that is fun after you solve it, but not at the start. So I'm talking about solving bugs and testing your code on an actual robot. After you do things, when you go to test, you realize, oh, I have so many bugs. Oh, this is not working as I expected. I need to go back and figure out how to do this. And in the process, you're like, oh my God, just please work. And then after you solved all the problems, then you're like, wow, that was fun. Let's go again. So that is what my day-to-day looked like.
What skills would you say you use the most or are the most important for like your role?
Problem solving and having patience. Because like I said, right, things are gonna go wrong. You need to have that patience, be like, okay, you know what, I have to try again. And I think those skills are way more important than technical skills, because you can learn technical skills. Let's say you don't know how to code, or let's say you don't know how to look at logs and figure out what the problem is. You can learn those things. You can watch YouTube videos, you can ask people, you can read books, you can learn all of that very easily. But the thing that is most needed is how to ask people for help, how to communicate your problems, how to find problems and solutions. So I would say, yes, number one, problem solving, followed by learn how to communicate and have the patience and grit to go back to your problems and keep solving until you find a solution.
Like, I guess for the technical skills part of it, do you recommend any resources to learn more outside of taking classes?
Sure, I would say, work on personal projects. There aren't, you don't have to go look for specific books or this thing. There are some really amazing ones. However, the most I learned was when I was working on personal projects. Again, one of the problems that people face is how to come up with ideas on what to work with. Ask your network. Go Google that, hey, beginner projects for robotics, or Google beginner projects for coding, whatever it is that you are, whatever field that is you're interested in. And then once you start solving and you face problems, go to websites like Overstock, or even go on LinkedIn or Facebook groups and be like, hey, I'm working on this project and this is the problem I'm facing. How do I solve it? I think it's always about trying to find that thread that you can continue searching on. So for example, let's say you want to do beginner projects in robotics. You wouldn't know where to start, but you ask and someone says, hey, check out Arduino or check out Raspberry Pi. And then that gets you started. Be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that, Raspberry Pi existed. And then you go Google beginner projects for Raspberry Pi, and that gets you started. And then, you can watch YouTube videos and learn how to code specifically for Raspberry Pi. It's not very different from your normal coding. It's just a little bit of syntax. So yeah, I think the biggest problem with doing your personal projects is, or, in terms of resources, it's trying to find those things that you need to learn more about. It's not specifically learning things, but figuring out what you need to learn. So another example for that is Git. Git is basically a version control where you can, save your code and you can go back on things, you can test things and all of that. And that is something I didn't know about until I started my work, until I started working in the field. So yeah, again, things like that, seek out mentors, ask them that, hey, what are the things I should be learning about? Or, start your own project and ask for help. Like I said, on LinkedIn or Facebook groups or Overstack, it's great resources to ask for help, ask for how to get started, and then just keep going.
What would you say is your favorite part about being an engineer, and what's the hardest part about being an engineer?
Oh, that's a fun question. I think learning from others. So at my work, what I used to do was, even though I'm in a particular team and I'm doing specific jobs, I know that it connects to different parts. So for example, I was working on perception, but I know that this also affects navigation. I also know that it affects how our whole stack is built. Now, I'm not an expert in this field, and I don't necessarily have to be, but I was always curious to learn as to what these people are doing. So I started a knowledge share lecture series where I would literally go to the person and be like, hey, can you do a presentation on what you are doing? I just want to learn. And what was interesting was I wasn't the only person who was interested in hearing. Once I put that out, we used to get almost 40 to 50 people to show up at that presentation. And like they say, it's best to learn from the person who's working on it. So even though I wasn't becoming an expert on that topic, I was still understanding how everything else works, how that impacts my work, and getting that holistic view definitely helps. So try that out.
Definitely, that's really good advice. So I guess working at a tech company, being in a tech role, how has your experience been like as a woman in tech?
Oh, wow, that is a loaded question. I'm going to be honest, it's not easy. You're definitely going to face problems. Sometimes it also means you get to have more grit. You get to learn that you don't need to keep going. And one thing that definitely helped me was mentors. So every time I was facing a problem, I would go ask them for help as to, how do I do this? How do I get over it? For example, one of the things I faced was in a meeting when I'm talking about an idea, sometimes I was overlooked. And then another person would come in and say the same thing, and people would pay attention. And that was really getting annoying. So I asked my mentors for help, and they said, hey, you need to call out on that behavior because it's possible the other person doesn't know that they're overlooking you. So next time that happens, just be like, hey, I said that same idea. How can I present my idea better next time so that it gets heard? Or say something like, hey, I said the same idea. Did I say it incorrectly? Something like that, to point out to the other person that they might be having a bias against you that they're not aware of. You don't necessarily need to point it out, but that is something that can help. So yes, you're going to face problems, but seek out people, seek out mentors, ask for their help. It doesn't necessarily have to be other women engineers. You can even ask men about that. I have a mix of women and men mentors who help me out. So yes, you're going to face problems, but seek out mentors, ask for their help. They've been there and they can tell you how to approach it.
Based on what you've seen, how would you recommend like improving some of these situations and biases in the workplace?
Okay, here's one of the things I used to do at my last company. Every time a woman or a girl joined, I would make sure to reach out and connect with them so that I can build that network. It used to be simple things like, hey, let's grab coffee and get to know each other. And through that, I found one of the women who had previously worked in creating women supporting clubs. So I was like, hey, why don't you start that at our company? And I can help you out in any way that I can. And she did start that. And through those, we used to hold these workshops where we used to openly discuss these topics. So we would get everyone together at lunch and discuss things like bias. And just having that discussion definitely helps. So one of the suggestions that came through that discussion was from a guy who said, hey, I also used to do that and I wasn't aware of it. And then once someone told me, what I did was every time I looked at a resume, I would black out the name. Or I would ask my recruiter to only send me resumes after blacking out the name or cropping that out. So that way, when I'm looking at a candidate, I'm only looking at them and not looking at their gender. So things like that helped me, reach out to other women in your company and build that network so you can support one another, create a club and hold those discussions where you openly talk about these problems so people are more aware of what's going on. Because that is usually one of the biggest problems. People aren't aware of what they're doing.
That's true. There's a lot of implicit and explicit bias that exists, I think, in both school and the workplace. So I think, like you said, having open conversations definitely seems to be a way to help things moving forward. Yes. Moving past tech, you are also a YouTuber and you make YouTube videos. So how has that been?
It's been fun. So when I was growing up, I didn't have that exposure. I didn't know what kind of different careers exist, how you can pursue something, things like what to expect from college, or even the fact that doing internships can help you out. So that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a space where I can share my experiences with other people who are getting started so they are more aware of these things. And that's what I've been doing. And it's been so fun because I get a lot of messages and email, especially on LinkedIn, people saying, hey, I am facing this. How do I get started? And it's great to help those people out and give that resource so that they can grow in their career. And it's just been absolutely fun. And also another thing I get to do is I get to interview other women and talk to them. So I invite them and be like, hey, tell me about your experiences. So because of this, I have had amazing conversation with women about how they are breaking barriers or things that helped them in their career. So I can apply that to my life, and also my viewers can too. So it's been fun.
Everyone should go check out Kajal's YouTube channel. I'll put the link into the description below. But yeah, you make really, really great content. I've been watching so many of your videos and trying to apply those same skills and learnings to my own life as well. In terms of like the future for your YouTube channel, like what goals do you have? And I guess also just career-wise, like what goals do you have for the future?
Firstly, thank you for saying great things about my channel. Also, check out her channel and make sure you subscribe. In terms of goal, I think the things I want to do is experiment with different content and really try and see how I can help others. So what I do is whatever questions I get from my LinkedIn message, I try to convert them into videos and see if that is something that people want and if it can help them. So yeah, just focusing on how I can help others and creating content about that. So that is what I have in future.
Back to tech, the tech world. What advice would you give to students who are interested in tech?
Explore as much as you can. Maybe join a club in your organization that participates in competitions. See how you enjoy or don't enjoy that. If you don't, move on, it's completely fine. Because one of the best ways to know if you would enjoy this or if you're good at it and if you want to explore this is actually doing that thing. And same goes for internships, right? You don't necessarily have to be an expert in the field to try something. Apply for internships, try it out, and see if those are the things you want to do. So for me also, I didn't always knew that robotics is what I wanted to do. So if you look at my career trajectory, I actually have an MBA in technology management. I did certifications in project management. I did an internship at an education loan company. And through these experiences, I realized, okay, these are not the things I want to do. And through one of the internships where I worked on a vehicle tracking system, I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. And then started working on personal robotics projects. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So my advice is explore. You don't necessarily have to have a clear trajectory into the field you're entering. Experiment. It's okay to try different things and figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, I think exploring is really how you get to learn about different things and explore, get out of your comfort zone, and just really see what you are actually interested in. So really, really great advice. So thank you so much, Kajal, for taking time out of your day and having this conversation with me about your journey as a woman in tech and working in the robotics field. Like we've said, Kajal also has a YouTube channel, so I'll make sure to link that in the description below. Check it out. It has really, really great content. I'll also link her LinkedIn if you're interested in connecting with her. But yeah, thank you so much, Kajal, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and make sure you subscribe to Shalini's channel because she does amazing content too. And see you guys.
See you all. Bye.